Cheyenne tried to get up. She had to take care of the remaining two eyes and then help Sasha to put the legs out of action. When she had pulled herself together, she relied on her intuition again and shattered the last left eye with a black arrow. The girl's eyes went black for a moment, and she staggered back, seeking her balance. The blurred vision returned, but she was still dizzy and coughed. She also spat out some blood. The lungs hurt more with every inhalation, and Cheyenne could only breathe sluggishly. The unfamiliar and disgruntled state made her feel terrible, and her eyes involuntarily filled with tears. She gasped and tried to raise her bowed head to look at her enemy. "Only still a single eye." Suddenly her legs buckled and her body began to shake more than ever before, due to the enormous exhaustion. The girl had landed on her knees, but she did not want to accept her weakness and pulled herself together again. She knew that she was at the limit, but it still went against the grain for her to constantly lose control of her body. She was too stubborn to accept this condition. It just didn't work. After all, her companions were facing death up there. She didn't want to, couldn't, and wouldn't give up, and she wouldn't watch them fail either. When she stood again and was about to turn around, she heard Sasha's voice. "Cheyenne, watch out!" Cheyenne just saw a white leg coming towards her, but not the tip of it, but the flat side of the cone-shaped spider's foot, before she was hit with it by the demon in a turn. The girl hovered high in the air and was hurled out to the sea. The cool wind made her sleepy, and she closed her eyes when she saw the blue and the waves pass by below her. If the blow had caused her pain, she no longer felt it. She didn't feel anything anymore, and all the noises around the girl stopped. Only a very bright sound could be heard in her head. She alternately felt cold and warm, and she heard the beating of her heart as the only remaining sign of life. Cheyenne was in a trance. The water was hard, like concrete floor, when she came up, and the state of vanished sentience was over. The girl could not remember ever having had such physical pain, but the suffering she had felt in her soul when her loved ones died and still felt it was a little stronger. The sea-water tasted enormously salty, but at least it would be able to wash off the stench of decay. Cheyenne tried her best not to drown, but it was difficult for her. Her body could hardly be moved, and she had no feeling in her left forearm. Her lungs could not withstand the pressure of the water, and the additional pain was too powerful for her to even try to breathe. The blue water surrounded her more and more until she was completely submerged. The salt content in it made the girl's vision even blurrier than before, and she didn't blink to improve the condition. She didn't see any point in it anymore. The water was cold and warm at the same time, enveloping Cheyenne in a comforting veil of security that invited her to finally give in to her tiredness and exhaustion and let herself be lulled to sleep. The song of the rushing sea rang in her ears and promised her that she would experience a dream that she liked. She could save her companions from death in this eternal adventure and would not have to give up again. The glow of chroma stars and the glow of the night eclipse bathed the sea in a wonderful aura, and Cheyenne now felt comfortable. Her sorrow was forgotten, her thoughts free, her soul freed from the torments of the past, her conscience cleansed, and her life as good as forfeited. Underwater, the chosen one of darkness, shrouded in a veil of irrepressible hope, brought by the green glow of the extraordinary chroma star, a fighter in the sky, and a messenger of strength and transgressive courage, given by the black aura of the unique night, a signpost of life and a lover of willpower. The depths of the sea pulled her down, opened the gate to death, Nothing stirred around the stunted body of this girl. No living creature was nearby. The blessed one was alone. Her hair slowly swarmed away from her body in a state of timelessness. They formed an angel wing-like shape of black and green. The last breath of a sign of life rose as an air bubble in the water as soon as it emerged from the slightly open mouth of the chosen one. The final breath was pushed down by a gentle wave and remained above the pale girl's head. It seemed to take the form of a halo, also immersed in hope and courage. A red veil emerged from the mutilated body, which surrounded her and made her appear dignified and reverent, despite the motionless rigidity. The blood-red cloak spread under the wings of innocence, and remained there by the pressure of the current. The blood that had come out of the mouth along with the last breath stopped its movement, and made the eyes, which shone in the same dignified, powerful color, merge the boundaries of life and death. Slowly, however, the red faded, and the emotions that had been there before were dying together with the chosen one, a beautiful angel on the way to the timeless levels of finiteness. The silence was broken by the last heartbeat of the chosen one of darkness. Solitude has been destroyed by a sacred voice that will long reverberate in the afflicted soul of the blessed one. Familiar and yet strange, she spoke to her. "You must not die. I will not allow it. Don't be afraid, my dear Cheyenne. Not yet." A completely black sea serpent appeared out of nowhere. Elegance and dignity accompanied it. She touched the chosen one of darkness, and the spirits returned to the dying body. Some of the pain was taken away from her, awakening Cheyenne from her sleep. The night-black sea serpent had large wings, which the girl could see when she came to herself and tried to understand the situation. In her ears echoed the words she had heard in the dream she just had experienced. The eyes of the creature that swam next to Cheyenne and brought her closer and closer to the surface by some force or magic without touching were pure black. But when it looked directly at her with both eyes, she saw that around the pupil in one of them there was a green ray-like shimmer that glowed a little, and in the other eye the same, only with a red glow. Cheyenne didn't know if she was just confused and just imagining this, or if reality was hiding behind fantasy and delusion, and if there was actually a real water dragon swimming next to her, which had saved her from death. A sea snake would not have such beautiful large wings, but in contrast to this ancient creature, fins and a long whisker on each side of its mouth. The girl couldn't shake the feeling that the charisma of this dragon looked familiar to her. Suddenly the black creature flinched and fled back into the depths at lightning speed. The words still echoed in Cheyenne's ears. "You must not die. I will not allow it. Don't be afraid, my dear Cheyenne. Not yet." The girl was too powerless to think about it more carefully, and she thought she was dreaming when she discovered her fairy wolf. Ardukas came directly towards her, then his owner held on to him and let herself be brought to the surface of the water. "Thank you so much, my Ardukas." At last she had reappeared in the fresh air and could breathe. Her lungs still hurt, but less intensely than before. The other ailments had also subsided somewhat, but she still couldn't move her forearm, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her again. Ardukas swam back to the sand passage with his owner, where her companions were still fighting the demon. The monster was just a miserable sight and would soon die. Vast amounts of umbrella particles rose to the sky, and much luminium was no longer visible on the spider's body. 3 legs were still attached to it, the second scissors destroyed. Cheyenne saw Sasha fall to the ground, and the spider crab just smashed one of her remaining legs down on her friend. "No, Sasha!" But suddenly the creature stopped the attack and froze. The tip of the spider's foot was only a few centimeters away from the young woman's face. Cheyenne could see that much as she and the fairy wolf came closer, despite the blurred vision. Then she saw the reason for it. Glacio stood directly under the demon and had rammed his ice sword into the middle of his umbrella body. The cold blade emanated an elemental attack that looked like a giant tree of ice that pierced the monster in many places. Suddenly the demon flinched, letting out the most deafening shrill scream of agony Cheyenne had ever heard, before it completely shattered into particles of umbrella and luminium, each on its way. The healer sank to his knees and seemed to be breathing heavily. Sasha remained lying on the floor and did the same, but as soon as Cheyenne and Adokas reached the shore, they both came rushing to the girl and the brave fairy wolf. The 4-legged companion pulled its owner out of the water and shook himself. Now you could see how much he too was trembling with exhaustion. Sasha dropped to her knees next to her best friend, as she couldn't really move and was so worried that she could only say the girl's name quietly and hoarsely. "Cheyenne! Cheyenne! Cheyenne!" Glacio came to the other side of his soaked prodigy and examined the situation. Cheyenne was lying on her back. Her vision became more and more blurred. Her eyes heard only a rustling, and her body was too weak to move. Again the words of the sacred voice echoed in her head, before it caused her so much pain that she fell asleep. The last thing she felt was Glacio lifting her up and carrying her in his hands away from the sand passage across the border to Halonia. "Calm down, little angel. Everything will be fine. Sleep now. We'll take care of you. Don't worry. Quiet."